Hey Flower Tribe, I wanted to show you a brand new pair of gloves that I got from the fine folks over at Hands On Gardening Gloves. And I love these gloves because they have little nodules that are built in, and this is going to help me with my weeding and my digging, and it's got extra layers to protect me from getting all cut up when I'm in like my rose bushes. So I'm going to show you very quickly how I propagate some of my smooth hydrangeas, and I'm going to use these gloves so that my hands stay protected. Of course, Lucy's in tow. I'm basically just going to come down here to this green stem that already has drooped to the ground. I'm going to remove the flower head from the top, and then I'm going to leave the leaves on the top and dig a little hole in the ground with my gloves. I'm going to take these gloves off because right now I want to scratch a little bit of the stem. So I'm going to remove the bottom leaves. I'm going to give a little scratch where those leaf nodes were, because that's where the roots are going to come from. I'm going to put the hands-on gloves back on, and these guys are super easy to take on and off. As you can see, that Velcro just attaches really easily. I'm going to take the stem, I'm going to bury it. I'm going to make sure that those two leaves on the top are still in place. I'm going to place a rock on top, and then eventually I'm going to water it in, and then I'm going to have new roots that come from that stem in a few weeks, and I'm going to have a new plant. Thank you, Hands On Gloves. I absolutely love your product. So fall is the best time to plant your hydrangeas in the ground. So what I'm going to do is pick up some hydrangeas, probably on sale at my local garden centers or Lowe's or Home Depot, and I'm going to make sure that I water them in first. So I'm going to give it a really good shot of water while it's sitting in the pot that I bought it in, and then I'm going to make sure that I read the little tag that it comes with, and I'm going to make sure that I find a location where it's going to be happiest. These tags always tell you if they take full sun or partial sun. And then I'm going to dig a hole that's twice the width of this bucket, and it's going to be the same height, because I want to make sure that I don't plant my hydrangeas too deep, because if they're planted too deep, you're going to wind up with a lot of water puddling on them, and hydrangeas don't like to have soggy feet. But I also want to make sure that I don't plant it too high. So I'm going to plant it either level with the soil or a little bit raised above that soil line. I'm going to water it in, and that's it. So here today with hydrangea quick tip number 13. So I wanted to show you some of the lovely flowers that I pair with my hydrangeas when we build out our arrangements. So I love using sunflowers to pair with these hydrangeas. I'll use all different varieties. I'll use some that have the yellow petals with the brown centers. I'll use some that are bicolor, and we'll just pair them with a whole bunch of different types of sunflowers. And we'll also put some greens from our garden mixed in with them. We've got some ivy mixed in on this one. And then I also love to use some of the cosmos that we have coming up in the field and from my friend Billy's field next door. So these are some cosmos from his flower farm, and these are the deeper purple ones, but know that you can also add some of these cosmo leaves in here to give it kind of like that wispy look. This is Kelly Lehman and Lucy Lehman, and we're here today with hydrangea quick tip number 14. I want to show you some fall care tips for your hydrangea. So these are what some of my limelight hydrangeas look like. This is a great time of year to cut your limelights because they're in that semi-dried stage, so they make for great flower arrangement flowers because they last super long. But the rest of your flowers, at this point, one of my number one tips is to, I'm going to lean this against Lucy, sorry. One of my number one tips is don't prune back your hydrangeas in fall, because you might wind up cutting off next year's flowers. But you can come in here, and what you could do is cut off some of those dead stalks that are in here. So any kind of stems that are in here that are white, they don't have any leaves on them, those can be cut back. And if you want to give your plant a little bit of a haircut at this time of year because it's flopping over on your sidewalk, you can do a little haircut, but make sure that you don't cut off too much of the plant, because this is next year's flowers being put in place on a lot of your mophead hydrangeas. The other ones, the limelights, will come in on next year's new growth, but I would still hold off on any kind of heavy pruning on any of your hydrangeas, because when you do a heavy pruning, you're also encouraging your plant to set forth some new growth, and right now you want your plant to go to sleep. So you can also remove some of the leaves at the base of your plant, and also make sure that you keep up with the watering and add some mulch. And we're here with hydrangea quick tip number 15. I want to show you how to use limelight hydrangeas in your flower arrangements, because they're super long lasting when you cut them at the semi-dried stage. So here it is, September, in my New Jersey Planting Hardiness Zone 6 secret garden, And this is the best time of year to cut your limelight hydrangeas because they're actually semi-dried right now. So when you take a look at what these look like on the stem, they started to turn a little bit green. Some of them have like this, like a little pink tinge on them. And when you feel them, they feel like they're semi-dried out. So a great idea to do is to just take a clipper, give them a clip, get rid of these leaves, and then you can make beautiful flower arrangements out of them. And I want to give you hydrangea quick tip number 16. So here I am with my limelight hydrangea, and it's fall, and a lot of you have asked me if I wind up deadheading or pruning this hydrangea back in fall, and the answer is I do not. I wind up leaving this plant in place. I actually even leave most of the flower heads in place because it gives me a lot of beautiful winter interest. However, some of the really super giant heavy ones I will wind up pruning off because I don't want to get cracked branches. So as you can tell, some of the ones towards like the top of the plant are a little bit larger. I'll try to get some of those super heavy heads off because the weight of the snow on top of those flower heads will sometimes cause some of the branches to crack. But for the most part, I'm going to leave this plant alone. It's going to go into the winter looking like this, and it looks super beautiful when it's covered with snow. Today I want to give you hydrangea quick tip number 17. So some Flower Tribe members have asked me if I don't prune off my hydrangea blooms in fall, will I still get new blooms in springtime? And the answer to that is yes, you will still wind up getting these blooms, and I want to show you what happens. So last year, I wasn't able to like prune off or like give a deadheading of all the flower heads that were on this limelight hydrangea, and you'll see there are some brown ones that are still left over from last season. Now, it's not the best idea to keep these on the plant. It's a good idea to kind of deadhead them off, maybe even in spring, because it kind of frees up some space and you won't have any fungal issues because of them, but we can't always get to those tasks. So even if you don't get a chance to deadhead off last season's blooms, you're still going to wind up getting some beautiful blooms on your hydrangea plant. So don't sweat it if you can't get to it. If you can do a deadheading in spring, that's awesome. I usually leave a lot of these on for winter interest. So if you don't get to that, it's not a big deal, but it does make the plant healthy if you can give it a deadheading at the end of winter or early spring. Today I'm here with hydrangea quick tip number 18. So I want to tell you all about black spots that are on your hydrangea leaves and what to do about them. So here it is this fall in my New Jersey garden, and a lot of times I start to notice that a lot of my hydrangea leaves start getting these brown and black spots at this time of year. And that's okay. I'm not too worried about them. A lot of times they're caused just by some overhead moisture that gets stuck on the plant at night from either rain or sometimes even from overhead watering, which is a big no-no. But when those leaves stay too wet and then we go into nighttime temperatures and things cool off, sometimes they wind up getting this little fungus, and it kind of looks like this. There's some brown spots, some black spots on them, and your best defense is to not overhead water. You want your leaves to be able to dry out during the day. Your best bet is to water at the base, and when they do start to pop up, you can simply cut those diseased leaves off the plant and make sure that you remove any of those diseased leaves from the base of the plant, because they can continue to spread. The fungal spores can continue to spread throughout your garden. So if most of your plant is covered with like black leaves or brown leaves, you might want to take it to a garden center to see if you need a larger treatment process. And I'm here with hydrangea quick tip number 19. So I wanted to tell you about one of my favorite hydrangeas. It's called Pinky Winky. And these blooms are really beautiful because they come in what's known as like a bicolor look. So we've got the white blooms on the top, we've got some pink blooms on the bottom, and for the most part, these blooms are usually a lot larger, but we had a drought this season, so these blooms are a little bit smaller than usual, but they usually come in around this size and even bigger. So this is a super easy hydrangea to grow in your gardens because it's drought tolerant, it is hardy to planting hardiness zones 4, and it basically is super easy because these blooms come in on what's known as new growth. So you don't have to worry about having a cold snap in the spring that will sometimes freeze off some of those hydrangea blooms like are on your mophead hydrangeas, because these guys are all put in place that spring, and so it's one of those hydrangeas that will bloom usually every single year without any fuss. You don't have to worry about pruning it back, you don't have to worry too much about fertilizing it. At least in my garden you don't. Some other gardens you might want to do a soil test, but for the most most part, I hardly do any kind of maintenance on them. And this is what it looks like in a flower arrangement. The only thing I'm not crazy about the Pinky Winky is sometimes it turns brown a little bit faster in arrangements as opposed to the limelights, which stay fresh longer. So I will see you guys in the next video. And I'm here with hydrangea quick tip number 20. So some Flower Tribe members have asked me, when is the best time of day to harvest my hydrangea flowers? And the answer to that is early morning. So I'll come out here to the secret garden and our flower farm, and I will harvest my hydrangeas early morning before the blooms wind up getting very dehydrated and kind of beat up from the sunshine. So if you can get out to your gardens early morning, that's usually the best time to harvest most of your flowers. Because if you come out here in the afternoon, a lot of times the plants are already dehydrated, they're a little bit tired, they're exhausted, and they just perk up better in a vase, and they will stay with longer vase life if you can come out here and harvest them in the morning. So that's the best time to harvest them.